How are we all? Okay, shall we make a start then? So it's a bit of a collaboration today. So it was Donna's card that she put in the group, and as soon as I saw it I thought, that looks amazing, I'm going to have a go at that. So I was going to message her and say, do you mind if I do it in a live? And then she messaged me to say somebody had asked her how she'd put it together. Did I want her to do a project for the blog? So we talked about it and we decided I could do it as a live. So thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. Let's get stuck in then. Now, we may run over. Apologies if we run over, but I want to give you all the measurements and I want to put it all together as we're going along. So I hope you've brought a pen and paper, because there are quite a few measurements, but it's actually easier than it looks. Okay, so let's just quickly run through what I'm going to be using. Obviously, I'm going to be using these fabulous designer papers. Well, I say papers, they're not papers really, they're card. It's card. You can't call this paper. I'm sorry, this is card. It's 200 GSM card with beautiful patterns on it. End of. So I'm using those, several. I'm using the Smile from the stamp set. I'm using the dies. And then I'm also adding one of the butterflies from the Layering Butterflies Stencils and Embossing folder set. I'm using the nested rectangles. And on the one that I'm going to show you that I did yesterday in prep, I've used the bubble squares. I'm not using the bubble squares today, but I thought I'd just mention it because I used it on the one that I'd already made as my prototype, so to speak. So this is the one that I made yesterday, just to prove to myself that I could do it. And it's such a clever card. So yeah, so this was the one I made as my prototype. Okay, and you can see it's so plain. It's a bit boring if I'm honest, but I've also done the back, and this is where I use the nested bubble squares just to put a panel on here so that you could write your greeting. Okay, because if I'm using a pattern paper, then obviously I'm not going to be able to write over the top of it. On today's, I'm not putting this square in because the paper that I'm using today, I feel you could write on and it wouldn't interfere with the background paper. Okay, you'll see what I mean when I get to it. Okay, so this is my prototype. So pens and papers at the ready, and let's make a start. So your base card, in whatever colour you choose to make it, is 6 by 12. Okay, so when this is all finished, it should be a 6 by 6 card, which should fit into a 6 by 6 envelope. I hope. I haven't tried it, but I hope it would. If not, it'd go in a 7 by 7 easily, and would give you a little bit more room, because obviously it's going to be quite deep, isn't it? Once you've put all your layers together. So 7 by 7 might be safer, but it actually measures 6 by 6. Okay. So that's your base card, 6 by 12, and you're going to score it and burnish it at 3 inches and 9 inches. Fold them into the middle, and that gives you your gatefold. Dead easy so far, yeah? So then I'm going to put the piece on the back, just to give this a little bit more stability while we're working on the rest, okay? So my piece on the back is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And my designer paper is 5.5 by 5.5. Now this gives you quite a deep matten layer, as you can see. If you wanted to make it a really tiny matten layer, then just increase those sizes by 1/8, okay? And you'll get a really small matten layer. But I actually think on this occasion, I think it really works having that larger matten layer. It sort of, for me, it gives the card a little bit more interest. So let's put our paper. Now I'm using a fresh bottle of glue, and this comes out like nobody's business, so I might get in a bit of a mess here, but let's go with it. Let's see. So then I'm just going to pop this down on the back of my card, and then that will give me a little bit more stability while I'm working on the rest. Okay, so let's just pop that down. And like I said, I'm not using the bubble squares on this one. I'm not putting an extra piece of white card in the middle, because I feel that this particular paper, you'd be able to write on the top and it wouldn't sort of disappear. You'd still be able to read it properly. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to leave it as it is. Okay, so there's the back. I'm leaving that as it is. And I know Donna put a sentiment across the middle of hers, but I'm not putting a sentiment on. So now we've got our gatefold card basis. Okay, now the next two pieces that you will need are 6x6. Okay, now this is just plain white card, and I've done it in plain white card just to show you what you would be doing. I've already cut my papers because I didn't want to be running them through my die cutting machine because it makes my camera wobble, so I didn't want to be doing that. So you need a piece of card in whatever colour you want, but different to this, because you want it to stand out. Okay, and you're going to score it at 2 inches, 3 inches and 5 inches. All right, so 2, 3 and 5. Okay, and then before you do your, I'm going to put an aperture here, but before you do that, I would fold your card and burnish it before you do your apertures, because it's going to make it easier afterwards to do your folds on your card so that it fits inside this card. You'll see what I mean in a minute. But if you fold it and burnish it first and then do your aperture, it's going to help. Okay, so I've used the rectangles. Like I said, I had planned on using the slimline rectangles, but they're too long for this card, even the ones in the middle, so I've gone with the rectangles. Now all you need to do is place your whatever you're using for your aperture into your card, and if you want to cut two together, then you can. Obviously then you know they're both in exactly the same place. But with the papers that I've used, if I show you what I've used the lines for my measurements. You can see it's marginally off centre, but you know, a blind man on a galloping horse isn't going to see that, is he? Because they're going to be on opposite sides of the card and you're not going to notice it. It's marginal, it really is. Okay, so you would run this through your die cutting machine. Make sure you do the panel that's next to the 1 inch tab. Okay, so this 1 inch tab is going to sit inside this card, and the 2 inch piece is going to sit there. So when it folds over like that, that's going to sit on the inside like that, and your aperture is going to be here. Okay, so always make sure that you cut your aperture on the 2 inch panel next to the 1 inch tab. Okay, as I said, I've already done my two pieces, and now you want to use them like that. So you want your 1 inch piece and your 2 inch piece like that, and opposite on the other side. Okay, now then, because you can see plain white here, you don't really want plain white, do you? If this was double-sided, you'd have a pattern on the inside. Okay, but you don't have to use double-sided paper. You can use what I'm using and then add some paper in afterwards. Now there are two ways of adding your paper into these pieces. You can either put it down before you fold it in, or wait until these are in and then add it in. So I'm going to do one way and one the other, just to show you that it's as easy either way. So these pieces measure 2 by 6 inches, okay, because this card is 6 inches deep and you want it to fill that piece of card. Okay, so let's just glue this one down, and we'll do the other one the other way so you can see how easy it is to do it either way. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so pop that on there. Now this, I said this was 2 by 6 inches. Okay, it's actually 2 by 6 inches, and then I've cut a very, very small slither off one side, because you want to be able to push this piece of card right into the fold here. And if I left this at 6 by 6, it might just hang over the edge a little bit. Okay, now I have actually put it in too far up, so I am just going to trim that off. Okay, now you're going to glue this into your base card, and you're going to glue it right up to the fold of your base card. Okay, right, so let's add our glue to our base here. So we're putting our shadow boxes now into the main card, and you want to push this in right into that fold. Okay, line it up, put it down, fold your card over. In fact, I would fold it on that line just to make sure that you can fold it shut. Okay, now you can see that my piece of card is going to give me my pattern in the background. Okay, so that I'm not looking at a stark white piece of card. Now all I'm going to do is add my glue on here, fold this over, and that will glue this to this flap here. All right, so let's add our glue down here. It's quite straightforward. It's not as difficult as you think it's going to be. I was quite pleasantly surprised, if I'm honest. Right, so let's put that down there like so, and just give it a couple of seconds to actually grab. Okay, so you can see now when you open the card, it pulls your little shadow box out like it should do, so that when it stands up, it's going to stand as it should. Okay, so let's add the other one, but let's not put this piece in until we've put this piece in, just to show you that you can do it either way round. So, you know, if you forget and you suddenly think, oh heck, haven't put my background piece in, don't panic. It's not the end of the world. You can sort it out. Okay, so pop that down right into the crease, making sure that you line it up at the top and the bottom. Push it right in, and then make sure you just wait until it's adhered properly. It's really quite easy. And then we're just going to add the glue to here, and then fasten the card up so that we can, oops, don't want that though, do I want to glue it shut. That wouldn't work, would it? Okay, so let's fold that over. There you go. There's your two little shadow boxes. And now you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh heck, didn't put my background piece into my little shadow box. So let's just add our glue to this piece and slide it in, and it will work just the same. And because you've cut it to the right size, and you've also taken that little slither off the edge, it will slide in dead easy, she said with her fingers crossed. Okay, so push that in, press it down, job done, Bob's your auntie. Okay, so now you've got your two background pieces in, and nobody would know that you'd forgotten to put it in this side, would they? Because it's just as easy to do it one way as it is to do it the other. If I'm 100% honest, I do it this way because I think that's much easier than trying to put it on here first. Okay, so that's your main card. Now we're going to come to decorating it. All right, so for our outside panels, you're going to need 2 pieces of card. Now bear in mind I'm using white and patterned. You can use whatever you like, whatever you've got, you just use whatever you want. Okay, I just chose to use white on this one. So this is 2 3/4 by 5 3/4 because it's going to fit that panel there. Okay, and then your patterned paper is 2 1/2 by 5.5. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just get rid of that. Put these down onto our panels, and then before I add my panels to my card, I am just going to stamp my sentiment onto the one side. So that's going on there. That's why I knew I was safe writing all my measurements on my card, because I knew I was going to cover them all up with my designer paper. Card. Not paper. Card. Okay, so that's my first one. And then we just pop the second one on. I mean, this is easy, isn't it? Really. You know, it's when you look at a card and you think, oh God, I'd never be able to do anything like that. Once you start and break it down into its individual elements, it really isn't that scary. And I think sometimes that's what you need to do, is just sit and watch somebody else do it, and then sort of tell yourself that you can do exactly the same, because there is no reason why you can't. Absolutely no reason. They're straightforward. They're just measurements, okay? And once you've got the measurements right and you've got all your pieces cut and sorted, then you're fine. You really don't need to worry about it. So I'm using the smile sentiment from the little stamp set that goes with the box kit. I'm using this one here, and I'm just going to stamp it directly onto my panel. But I'm going to do it before I add it to the card, because obviously there's quite a few layers here, and I don't want to end up with sort of gaps, she said, hoping that she doesn't end up with gaps. So I'm going to put this down at the bottom. I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure and leave that sitting there just for a couple of seconds, just to make sure that the ink transfers to the paper as it should. I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't. This Cloud9 black ink is amazing. If you haven't got one, you need one. So that's my stamping done. So let's put that to one side, and then I can add my panels to my card. Now you can see that I've actually not got it quite central, but I think sometimes when you're adding bulk into the middle of a card, you're going to end up with a little bit of a gap. But trust me, nobody's going to notice, because when they put the card up and, you know, stand it up on their TV or their mantelpiece or whatever, it's going to be slightly open. So the chances of them seeing it shut and thinking, oh, it doesn't meet in the middle, then, you know, well, tough. It don't meet in the middle, it don't meet in the middle. It's the thought that counts. Okay. I love this paper. This is just beautiful. And it's got every colour that's in the box kit within that paper. And I think that's just fabulous. Okay, so let's pop this one down on this side. And again, you can see by having that larger matten layer, it really stands out on that card. And I really think it's worth doing the extra wide one. Okay, so that's really the basis of my card. So all I've got to do now is my inside panels. Okay, so let's go ahead and do those. Now again, I'm using white, and I'm using the fabulous dotty paper, the pink. I think it's just amazing. And you get this in every colour as well. So there's a peach, there's a yellow, there's sky blue, a green, and the pink. And I think it's just fabulous. So the inside panels, you need 3 of these, and these are 1 3/4 by 5 3/4. And then your designer paper card is 1.5 by 5.5. So I've come down 1/4 of an inch every time on everything. So that's what your matten layers are. But like I say, if you want them smaller, just increase all your measurements by 1/8 and they will look absolutely fine. I'm just going to glue these down, and then we're going to stick these into our card in the right places. So it's come together really quickly. It's easy, it's straightforward. Once you've got all your bits and pieces, putting it together is nothing really. So there's my 3 panels, and I would always cut all your pieces to make your card before you start putting it together. That way you don't end up with loads of stuff on your desk while you're putting the card together, because I think for me that would confuse me. I mean, yes, my desk was a mess this morning while I was prepping, but it was only as a sort of a means to an end. But I would cut everything and then just have your workspace with the bits that you've cut and your measurements and go for it. Okay, so I'm just adding my little panels down to the inside. So the 2 are going on the inside panels that open out, and then the other one goes right in the middle. Okay, so let's pop these down here like so. And this glue is just amazing. Nothing is going to go anywhere once you've done this, I promise you. This glue is fabulous. Right, so now you've got your panel in the middle that looks a little bit bare, and that's where this one's going. So all your inside panels have got this fabulous dotty paper on, and your outside panels and your shadow box have got this fabulous check paper, and I just think it's beautiful. Okay, so let's pop that down there. You can see how it all sort of just flows now, and it all looks beautifully even, and I just think it's cracking card. So there's your card. Right, so now all you've got to do is decorate it. Now I've decorated it with one of the die cuts. Obviously I've used the die set to cut this out. This is on one of the papers. You don't have to use these. I mean, if you wanted to, you could use your trailing satin flower and sort of build that up a little bit, like I've done with this. I've cut this in 4 other pieces of just plain white card to give it a bit of strength, really, just a little bit more stability. But you could do the same with Propsia trailing satin or any of the corner flowers that Lisa's bought out. So you could add that to the front instead, if you didn't want to use, you know, the die cuts from the papers. Equally, doesn't matter, whatever you want to use, it's entirely up to you. So I'm going to add this so that it's in the middle. So I'm only going to glue this on this side. So I'm going to just take my pencil and draw myself a line as to where I want my glue, and then I know exactly where to put my flower back when I've added my glue. I'm not going to make a mess, and I'm not going to glue it shut, she said. So just decide whereabouts you want it, sort of pretty central, and then add it down to where you drew your line and just hold it in place till it's actually properly adhered. Okay, and then that will just sit on the front like that. And then inside, so that these little shadow boxes don't look bare, you could add your little die cut flowers. Now I'm going to add mine top and bottom here, which I think was where Donna added hers, and I'm just going to make sure that it sits across that piece of frame of this little shadow box, just again to give that a little bit more stability. So I'm adding glue right to the end of the tip of that leaf, and then half of the flower. Okay, so just hold it in place till that glue grabs, and then you've got your flower over the corner of the aperture. Now if you wanted to, you could add a little strip of acetate across the middle here and use your tatty words, which are really sort of fiddly and tiny, and you could glue your tatty words to a piece of acetate. But if you're going to use acetate across the middle here, I would put your acetate in. I would use probably the red liner tape, and I would put that in before you put this box into the inside of the card. Okay, otherwise it's going to be really fiddly to put it in afterwards, because you're not going to have much room to maneuver inside that little box. So again, just the tip here of my leaf, come on, glue there, and then just the one side of the flower that's going to sit on the box, and put that in there like so. Just hold that in till it's grabbed. Okay, so you've got a little bit of decoration on the inside, and you've got a little bit of decoration on the outside, and then just to finish it off, you could add a little butterfly. I'm not sure now whether I'm going to use it or not. I might just leave it and think about that. Perhaps if it was a little bit smaller, I might use the butterfly. I don't want to sit the butterfly in the middle, otherwise you lose all the flowers. I suppose I could put the butterfly on the back, couldn't I? Yeah, but to put the butterfly on the back, and then I've used the butterfly, but it hasn't overcrowded the front. So if I put that there and just hold that middle down till that's grabbed, and then you've got a little bit of interest on the back as well. And I've gone with the pinks and the purples. This was one that I did absolutely ages ago, but I thought if I use the pinks in the papers, then this will sort of blend in and match as well. So I'll put the butterfly on the back and the flowers on the front and on the inside, and use my sentiment. I mean, I could have put the "It's Your Birthday" up the side here. So, you know, just have a play. There are so many gorgeous papers in this set that, trust me, I don't think you'll make the same card twice, because it's just beautiful. It really is. I can't put into words how fabulous it is. I know all the girls have said the same. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful kit. It really, really is. And it works with everything. It works with everything you've already got. So it's got longevity, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And I just think it's so beautiful. I don't know where she gets her ideas from, but I'm so glad she does. Right, that's me then. 2 beautiful cards. Hope you like them. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate you turning up all the time. So have a fabulous week, and I'll see you Thursday. Take care, everybody. Bye now.